Salakaya Chakshushan Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manubhistam Shapitam Yena Bhutali Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurun Shri Jataha Pajikamalan Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagunara Gunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sabudutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Nivitamsa Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanustute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchikalpatarabhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhaktavindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namani Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sunyavani Paskatya Desatarine. So we're going to read the verses or recite the verses of Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 1 Chapter 2 Divinity and Divine Service, and we can chant together. Vyasa uvacha iti samprasna samhristo vipranam romaharsani pratipujya vajaste sam pravaktam upachakrame ugrasema sutta Goswami. The son of Romaharsana, being fully satisfied by the perfect questions of the Brahmanas, thanked them and thus attempted to reply. So Brahmanas asked him 6 questions. Sutta uvacha yam pravajantam anupetyam apeta krityam dvaipayano virahakataro ajuhava putreti tanmayataya taravo binedus tam sarva bhutta hridayam munimanatosmi. Srila Sutta Goswami said, "Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the great sage, Sukadeva Goswami, who can enter the hearts of all. When he went away to take up the renounced order of life, sannyasa, leaving home without undergoing reformation by the sacred thread or the ceremonies observed by the higher castes, his father Vyasadeva, fearing separation from him, cried out, 'O my son!' Indeed, only the trees which were absorbed in the same feelings of separation echoed in response to the begrieved father. Yaswanubhava makila shrutisharam ekam adhyatma deepam atiti tishatam tamodandam samsarinam karunaya yaha purana guyam tam yasasunam upayami Gurum Muninam. Let me offer my respectful obeisance unto him, Sukha, the spiritual master of all sages, the son of Vyasadeva, who out of his great compassion for those gross materialists who struggle to cross over the darkest regions of material existence, spoke this most confidential supplement to the cream of Vedic knowledge after having personally assimilated it by experience. Narayanam namaskritya naram cheva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality Godhead Narayana. unto Nara Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Munaya sadhu pristoham bhavad bir lokamangalam yat krita krishna samprasno inatma suprasidati. O sages, I have been justly questioned by you. Your questions are worthy because they relate to Lord Krishna, and so are relevance, and so are of relevance to the world's welfare. Only questions of this sort are capable of completely satisfying the self. Savai pumsa paro dharmo yato bhaktira hoksaje ahaitukiya pratihata yayatma suprasidati. The supreme occupation, dharma, for all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janayat Yasu Vairagyam Yanam Chayad Ahaitukam. By rendering devotional service unto the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. Dharma swanustitak pumsam visvak sena katasuya nadpada yadiratim shama evahi kevalam. The occupational activities a man performs according to his own position are only so much useless labor if they do not provoke attraction for the message of the personality of Godhead. Dharmasya hyapavargasya narto ritayupakalpate nartasya dharmakantasya kamo labhaya hismrita. All occupational engagements are certainly meant for ultimate liberation. They should never be performed for material gain. Furthermore, according to sages, one who is engaged in the ultimate occupational service should never use material gain to cultivate sense gratification. Kamasya nindriya pritir labho jiveta yavata jivasya tattva jigyasa narto yas cheha karma bihi. Life's desire should never be directed towards sense gratification. One should desire only a healthy life or self-preservation. Since a human being is meant for inquiry about the absolute truth, nothing else should be the goal of one's works. Vadanti tattvavedas tattvam yajganamadvayam prameti paramatmeti bhagavaniti sabhyate. Learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Tatshadadana munayo jnana vairagya yuktaye pasyanti atmani chatmanam pakya shrutagrihitaya. The seriously inquisitive student or sage, well equipped with knowledge and detachment, realizes that absolute truth by rendering devotional service in terms of what he has heard from the Vedanta Shruti. Atak pumbir dvijashresta varnashraman vibhagasaha swanustitasya dharmasya samsiddhir haritoshanam. O best among the twice-born, it is therefore concluded that the highest perfection one can achieve by discharging the duties prescribed for one's own occupation according to caste divisions and orders of life is to please the personality of Godhead. Shri Shri Radha Nilamadhava Ki Jai. Tasmat ekana manasa Bhagavan Sattvatam Pati Shrutavya Kirtitavyascha Yeya Pujascha Nityada. Therefore, with one pointed attention, one should constantly hear about, glorify, remember, and worship the personality of Godhead, who is the protector of the devotees. Yad anudyasina yukta karma grantini bandhanam Chindanti kovidastasya kona kuryat kataratrim. With sword in hand, intelligent men cut through the binding knots of reactionary work, karma, by remembering the personality of Godhead. Therefore, who will not pay attention to his message? Shushu Sohor Shadadanasya Vasudeva Kataruchi Syan Mahatsivaya Vipra Punyatirtha Nisevanat. O twice-born sages, by serving those devotees who are completely freed from all vice, great service is done. By such service, one gains affinity for hearing the messages of Vasudeva. Shinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridyantaksto Hyabadrani Vidunoti Srihitsatam. Shri Krishna, the personality Godhead, who is the Paramatma, supersoul in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desires for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. Nastapreyesu abhadresu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati utama sloke bhaktira bhavati naistiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome in the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Tada rajastamo bhava kama loba dayaschaye cheta etarana vidam stitvam sattve prasidati. As soon as irrevocable loving service is established in the heart, the effects of nature's modes of passion and ignorance, such as lust, desire, and hankering, disappear from the heart. Then the devotee is established in goodness and he becomes completely happy. Evam prasana manaso bhagavat bhakti yogataha bhagavat tattva vijnanam muktasangasya jayate. Thus established in the mode of unalloyed goodness, the man whose mind has been enlivened by contact with devotional service to the Lord gains positive scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead in the stage of liberation from all material association. Vidyate hridaya grantis chidyante sarvasamsaya shiyante chasya karmani jista eva atmanishvare. Thus the knot in the heart is pierced and all misgivings are cut to pieces. The chain of fruitive actions is terminated when one sees the self as master. Ato vai kavayo nityam bhaktim paramaya muda vasudeve bhagavati kurvanti atma prasadanim. Certainly, therefore, since time immemorial, all transcendentalists have been rendering devotional service to Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead, with great delight, because such devotional service is enlivening to the self. Sattvam rajastama iti prakritir gunastair. Sattvam rajastama iti prakritir gunastair yukta para purusha ika ihasya date stityadaye harivirinchi harete samgyana sheyamsi tatrakalo satpratanor nidam syu. The transcendental personality of God is indirectly associated with the three modes of material nature, namely passion, goodness, and ignorance, and just for the material world's creation, maintenance, and destruction. He accepts the three qualitative forms of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. Of these three, all human beings can derive ultimate benefit from Vishnu, the form of the quality of goodness. Prativad Daruno dumas tasmat agnis trayimaya tamasastu rajas tasmat sattvam yad brahmadarshanam. Firewood is a transformation of earth, but smoke is better than the raw wood, and fire is still better, for by fire we can derive the benefits of superior knowledge through Vedic sacrifices. Similarly, passion, rajas, is better than ignorance, tamas, but goodness, sattva, is best, because by goodness one can come to realize the absolute truth. Pejire munayo tagre bhagavatam adhoksajam sattvam visudam semaya kalpante ye nutan iha. Previously, all the great sages rendered service unto the personality of Godhead due to his existence above the three modes of material nature. They worship him to become free from material conditions and thus derive the ultimate benefit. Whoever follows such great authorities is also eligible for liberation from the material world. Mumukshavo gora rupam hitva bhuta patin ata narayana kala shanta bhajanti ye anasuyava. Those who are serious about liberation are certainly non-envious, and they respect all. Yet they reject the horrible and ghastly forms of the demigods, and worship only the all-blissful forms of Lord Vishnu and his plenary portions. Rajastama prakritaya samasila bhajantiva prityabhuta praje sadin shiyaiswarya praje savaha. Those who are in the modes of passion and ignorance worship the forefathers, other living beings, and the demigods, who are in charge of cosmic activities, for they are urged by a desire to be materially benefited with women, wealth, power, and progeny. Vasudeva para Veda, Vasudeva para Maka, Vasudeva para Yoga, Vasudeva para Kriya, Vasudeva param Jnanam, Vasudeva param Tapa, Vasudeva paro dharmo, Vasudeva para gati. In the revealed scriptures, the ultimate object of knowledge is Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. The purpose of performing sacrifice is to please him. Yoga is for realizing him. All fruitive activities are ultimately rewarded by him only. He is supreme knowledge, and all severe austerities are performed to know him. Religion, dharma, is rendering loving service unto him. He is the supreme goal of life. Sa evadam sasar jagre bhagavan atma mayaya sadasad rupaya chaso gunamaya guno vibhu. In the beginning of the material creation, that absolute personality Godhead, Vasudeva, in his transcendental position, created the energies of cause and effect by his own internal energy. Taya vilasites Pesu gunesu gunavan iva antak pravista abhati vijnanena vijambitaha. After creating the material substance, the Lord Vasudeva expands himself and enters into it. And although he is within the material modes of nature and appears to be one of the created beings, he is always fully enlightened in his transcendental position. Yatahi abahito vanir darus veka swayonisu naneva bhati visvatma bhutesu chatatapumam. The Lord as Supersoul pervades all things just as fire permeates wood, and so he appears to be of many varieties, though he is the absolute one without a second. Asho gunamayer bhavir bhuta suksmendriyatmabi Swanime tesu nirvisto bhunkte bhutesu tadgunan. The Supersoul enters into the bodies of the created beings who are influenced by the modes of material nature and causes them to enjoy the effects of these modes by the subtle mind. Bhava yat yesha satvena lokan vai loka bhavana lilavatar ranu rato devatiryan naradisu. Thus the Lord of the universe maintains all planets inhabited by demigods, men, and lower animals. Assuming the roles of incarnations, he performs pastimes to reclaim those in the mode of pure goodness. So this is first canto, chapter 2. It's extremely important for all devotees to be acquainted with, because it explains in a very concise way how to become perfect through Krishna consciousness, or how to develop pure love of Krishna by practicing Krishna consciousness. So today we're going to begin the second canto, Srimad Bhagavatam. And this canto is all about the basis of material creation and how to understand the presence of Krishna that's in the heart of every living entity. So Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, formerly, prior to the manifestation of the cosmos, Lord Brahma, by meditating on the Virat Rupa, regained his lost consciousness by appeasing the Lord. Thus he was able to rebuild the creation as it was before. So this is an example. Even Lord Brahma is subject to forgetfulness. And he's in charge of the mode of passion. And he's empowered by the Lord to generate the material creation. But because he is a living entity, he can forget very easily. And this forgetfulness of the living entity, beginning from Brahma down to the lowest insignificant ant, is a tendency that can be counteracted by meditating on the Virat Rupa of the Lord. So everyone has a chance in the human form of life if we follow the instructions of Srimad Bhagavatam, as we just read the first canto, second chapter, and begin to meditate upon the Lord. And then our original pure consciousness, or Krishna consciousness, can be revived. And we can counteract the tendency to forget. Okay, so then it continues. The way of presentation of the Vedic sounds is so bewildering that it directs the intelligence of the people to meaningless things like the heavenly kingdoms. The conditioned souls hover in dreams of such heavenly, illusory pleasures, but actually they do not relish any tangible happiness in such places. So the symptom of living entities in this age of Kali is they're continually making plans for material happiness within this world. And they're never completely satisfied with the different facilities present on this planet Earth, where we are exploiting the resources of nature to the best of our ability. Although we're not satisfied here, we want to go to the moon to exploit resources there. But Krishna has warned us of the worthlessness of all the innumerable planets of this universe, as well as those planets within other systems. Because they're all places of birth, death, old age, and disease. And even the topmost planet, Satyaloka, where Lord Brahma is present, it's not always happy there due to the presence of these four qualities of material life: birth, death, old age, and disease. For this reason, the enlightened person should endeavor only for the minimum necessities of life while in the world of names. So another way of referring to the material world is the world of names. He should be intelligently fixed and never endeavor for unwanted things, being competent to perceive practically that all such endeavors are merely hard labor for nothing. Well, in the end, everything we accomplish in the material world will be destroyed, and then we end up with nothing. So if we become captivated by the illusory advancement of material civilization, we become basically like insane people. The whole world is simply a jugglery of names. In fact, it's nothing but a bewildering creation of matter like earth, water, and fire. Everything we see, the buildings, the furniture, cars, bungalows, mills, factories, industries, peace, war, or even the highest perfection of material science, atomic energy, electronics, are all simply bewildering names of material elements with their concomitant reactions of the three modes. So, since the devotee understands this, he's not interested in creating unwanted things in order to make his situation comfortable in the material world. And how can it be comfortable when there's disease, there's war, there's social unrest? The materialists, they want to have a lot of wealth, They want to have sense gratification. They want to be honored in society. But those who are fixed in the truth, they're not interested in these, what we call false things, because they only last for a little while. They're not eternal. It's basically a waste of time. However, living a simple life, not denying the basic essentials of life, simplifies our preoccupations, and thus we have time to think about spiritual life also. And that is called wisdom. If we waste even 1 second of time searching for material happiness, it can never be replaced. So instead of using time for material happiness, we should seek spiritual happiness, spiritual emancipation from the cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease. As long as we're in a state of illusion about what the purpose of life is, everything we achieve in this life will be basically a dream. People live with memories, but instead of living with memories of temporary things, it's better to develop memories of eternal things, of Krishna's pastimes, and knowledge of devotees, remembering how they attain perfection and love of Krishna through devotional service. Those are real memories. Memories of I went on vacation here, or I was in love with this person, or I achieved this certain material goal. Those are like dreams when they're over, when they're past. But dreaming or thinking about Krishna, that can lead one to eternal salvation. When there are ample earthly flats to lie on, what is the necessity of cots and beds? When one can use his own arms, what is the necessity of a pillow? When one can use the palms of his hands, what is the necessity of varieties of utensils? When there is ample covering or the skins of trees, what is the necessity of clothing? Are there no torn clothes lying on the common road? Do the trees which exist for maintaining others no longer give alms and charity? Do the rivers, being dried up, no longer supply water to the thirsty? Are the caves of the mountains now closed? Or above all, does the Almighty Lord not protect the fully surrendered souls? Why then do the learned sages go to flatter those who are intoxicated by hard-earned wealth? Thus being fixed, one must render service unto the Supersoul situated in one's own heart by his omnipotency. Because he is the Almighty Personality of Godhead, eternal and unlimited, he is the ultimate cause or ultimate goal of life, and by worshiping him, one can end the cause of the conditioned state of existence. Who else but the gross materialist will neglect such transcendental thought and take to the non-permanent names only, seeing the mass of people fallen in the river of suffering as a consequence of accruing the result of their own work? So, intelligent people, they look at the general condition of living entities in this world. They're wandering in a cycle of 8,400,000 species of life, birth, death, in different species, and different classes of human beings. Why should one simply go on wandering like that and never really looking for Krishna, but just looking for sense gratification? Rather, if we take our attention off of sense gratification and put it on Krishna, our senses will be perfectly satisfied by Krishna's prasadam. And we will then use our time to search out the root of existence, and we do that through engaging in devotional service to the Lord. Then the Lord reveals himself to us. Ye yatamam prapadyante tam stataiva bhajamyaham mamavart manavartante manusya partha sarvasaha. As one surrenders to Krishna, proportionately the Lord reveals himself to us. So why not embark on this adventure of seeing the Lord of the universe, rather than embarking on the adventure of seeking out some place in this world for material happiness, which will never last. It will always come to an end, and we end up with nothing but a foggy memory. Others conceive of the personality of Godhead residing within the body in the region of the heart and measuring only 8 inches, with 4 hands carrying a lotus, a wheel of a chariot, a conch shell, and a club respectively. So now, some people seek out Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead. Other people seek out Krishna, but in the form of Paramatma, in the heart, in the Vishnu form. And now there's a description of Paramatma. His mouth expresses his happiness, his eyes spread like the petals of a lotus, his garments, yellowish like the saffron of a kadamba flower, are bedecked with valuable jewels. His ornaments are all made of gold, set with jewels, and he wears a glowing headdress and earrings. His lotus feet are placed over the whorls of the lotus-like hearts of great mystics. On his chest is the Kostoba jewel, engraved with a beautiful calf, and there are other jewels on his shoulders. His complete torso is garlanded with fresh flowers. So a long description takes place of the beauty of Paramatma, which here is revealed. He's present as 8 inches in the heart of the living entity. And then now explains how to meditate on the Lord in the heart. So the process of meditation should begin from the lotus feet of the Lord and progress to his smiling face. The meditation should be concentrated upon the lotus feet, then the calves, then the thighs, and in this way, higher and higher. The more the mind becomes fixed upon the different parts of the limbs, one after another, the more the intelligence becomes purified. Unless the gross materialist develops a sense of loving service unto the Supreme Lord, the seer of both the transcendental and material worlds, he should remember and meditate upon the universal form of the Lord at the end of his prescribed duties. So, again now, this is another recommendation for gross materialists. They should start rather with the Virat Rupa, the universal form of the Lord, and then eventually come up to the Paramatma, and then to Lord Krishna. One can surpass all those stages of gradual elevation by just taking the Krishna consciousness directly. But some people are not able to do that, so this other method is recommended. O King, whenever the yogi desires to leave this planet of human beings, he should not be perplexed about the proper time or place, but should comfortably sit without being disturbed, and regulating the life here, should control the senses by the mind. So now it's describing this system of mystic yoga, which is highly technical. Thereafter, the yogi should merge his mind by his unalloyed intelligence into the living entity, and then merge the living entity into the super-self, and by doing this, the fully satisfied living entity becomes situated in the supreme stage of satisfaction, so that he ceases from all other activities. So this is called winding down one's preoccupation and entanglement in the material world through this mystic meditation process. In that transcendental state of labdo pashanti, there is no supremacy of devastating time which controls even the celestial demigods, who are empowered to rule over mundane creatures, and what to speak of the demigods themselves. Nor is there the mode of material goodness, nor passion, nor ignorance, nor even the false ego, nor the material causal ocean, nor the material nature. So this is explaining now the transcendental situation of a mystic yogi. The transcendentalists desire to avoid everything godless, for they know that supreme situation in which everything is related with the Supreme Lord Vishnu. Therefore, a pure devotee who is in absolute harmony with the Lord does not create perplexities, but worships the lotus feet of the Lord at every moment, taking them into his heart. So this phrase here is the pure devotee who is in absolute harmony with the Lord does not create perplexities, but worships the lotus feet of the Lord at every moment. That is the key. Because devotees are enamored by the Lord, they don't divert their attention to anything else. They're in perfect harmony with the personality of Godhead. because they always think of the Lord as their only dependable friend and well-wisher. They don't care for any mundane creature up to the status of Brahma, the Lord of the universe. Only they can have a clear understanding of their belonging to the spiritual world. Most people think, I belong here. This is my home. This is my people. This is my language. But actually we don't. And pure devotees who've understood their real nature, they don't feel as if they belong here. They feel as if they know they belong with Krishna in the spiritual world. And Krishna is present here also as Srimad Bhagavatam, as Bhagavad Gita, as the holy name, as deity form. So this is where they belong. Therefore, because they direct all their attention to the Lord, they don't create any artificial perplexity in the matter of transcendental understanding by wasting time in discussing what is Brahman and what is not Brahman, or what is Maya, what is not Maya. They don't falsely think themselves as one with the Lord, or argue that there is no existence of the Lord separately, or that there is no God at all, or that living beings are themselves God, or that when God incarnates himself, he assumes a material body. Nor do they concern themselves with many obscure speculative theories, which are, in actuality, so many stumbling blocks on the path of transcendental understanding. Apart from the class of impersonalists or non-devotees, there are also classes of who pose themselves as devotees of the Lord, but at heart maintain the idea of salvation by becoming one with the impersonal Brahman. They wrongly manufacture their own way of devotional service by open debauchery and mislead others who are simpletons or debauchees like themselves. All these non-devotees and debauchees, like according to Vishwanatha Chakravarti, are duratmas, or crooked souls in the dress of Mahatmas, or great souls. Such non-devotees and debauchees are completely excluded from the list of transcendentalists by the presentation of this particular verse by Sukadeva Goswami. In other words, this verse says the transcendentalists avoid everything that's godless, for they know the supreme situation in which everything is related with the Supreme Lord Vishnu. In other words, their vision of this world is that they see the presence of Krishna within everything, and they see the relationship of everything to Krishna. That's a spiritual vision. So, a devotee who is in absolute harmony with the Lord does not create perplexities, does not see dualities, does not differentiate on the basis of the body, but sees the oneness of the soul. All living entities are part and parcel of Krishna. They're eternal individuals. Krishna is an eternal individual. That individuality is never destroyed. But every one of us depend on Krishna. And he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the purpose of life is to serve him. So therefore, one is in complete harmony with the Lord. By the strength of scientific knowledge, one should be well situated in absolute realization and thus be able to extinguish all material desires. One should then give up the material body by blocking the air hole through which stool is evacuated with the heel of one's foot, and by lifting the life air from one place to another in the 6 primary places. So this is an explanation of mystical yoga or Ashtanga yoga. Is this for devotees? No, you don't have to do this. We read how Arjuna attained perfection. He simply remembered his conversation with Krishna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and he attained perfection. Whereas Dhritarashtra, he did this type of mystic concentration, which is very technical, very difficult, but unnecessary for a genuine devotee. The devotee achieves the same thing simply by remembering Krishna and Arjuna's discussion, or Bhagavad Gita. And now it goes through a very detailed explanation of how to push the life air up through the different, it's called Sat Chakra Yoga. Then it's explained here, however, O king, this is Sukadev Goswami, if a yogi maintains a desire for improved material enjoyments, like transference to the topmost planet, Brahmaloka, or the achievement of the eightfold perfections, or travel in outer space with the Vaihayasas, or a situation in one of the millions of planets, then he has to take away with him the materially molded mind and senses. In other words, he's not free of the material mind and senses, or his mind is still infected with material desires. And that happens a lot to yogis who become enamored by developing the eightfold siddhis, which are Anima Siddhi, Lagima Siddhi, Prapti Siddhi, Mahima Siddhi, Isitva Siddhi, Vasitva Siddhi, and Prakamya Siddhi, and Kama Vasayayita Siddhi. Those are Anima Siddhi, or becoming lighter than a soft feather. Lagima Siddhi, they can obtain anything they want by becoming gigantic. When they become bigger, they can just stretch their hand and take anything they want. Prapti Siddhi, to become heavier than the heaviest. And Isitva Siddhi, to control all material elements. Vasitva Siddhi, to possess such power as will never be frustrated in any desire. In other words, they can obtain anything they want. Prakamya Siddhi, to assume any shape or form one may desire. And Kama Vasayata Siddhi, which is one can create a parallel universe. They become so powerful. So there are many people in the universe, especially in the upper planets, who are perfect yogis, and they have these powers. But a pure devotee is not interested in this. The pure devotee is not ambitious to dominate anything false and temporary in this world. He only wants to be dominated by the supreme predominator, or Lord Krishna, and the desire to serve the Lord, the supreme predominator. This is a spiritual transcendental desire. The desire to master the cities, it's actually still a material desire. It's not really spiritual. So one has to attain this purification of the mind and the senses in order to enter into the spiritual world. So as long as one is attached to anything, even the concept of mukti, they remain within the influence of the material world. So with the materialistic mind, one can reach the best planet in the universe, but no one can enter into the kingdom of God. So the senses are called spiritually purified when they're no longer involved in any type of sense gratification. The senses require engagement, and when the senses are totally engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, they have no chance to become contaminated by material infections. So transcendentalists are concerned with the spiritual body, not so much with the material body. And by the strength of their devotional service and austerities, mystic power, and transcendental knowledge, their movements are unrestricted within and beyond the material worlds. The fruitive workers, or the gross materialists, can never move in such an unrestricted manner. Yet one gains more freedom as one becomes master of the mind and the senses by engaging them in Krishna's service. You don't have to build rocket ships to travel to other planets. One can travel simply by performing this mystic type of yoga, or one can simply engage their entire life in Krishna's service, and Krishna will personally accompany them back to the spiritual world. You don't even have to do mystic yoga. When such a mystic passes over the Milky Way by the illuminating Susumna to reach the highest planet, Brahmaloka, he goes first to Vaishvanara, the planet of the deity of fire, wherein he becomes completely cleansed of all contaminations, and therefore he still goes higher to the circle of Sisumara to relate with Lord Hari, the personality of Godhead. So this is explaining the technical way of getting out of the material world. Again, this does not apply to a devotee. Krishna will come riding on his bird carrier Garuda and invite the devotee to get on, and then he'll take him back to Godhead. He doesn't have to go through all these complicated things. However, some people want to do this. So there's such a thing as the pole star, or Dhruva Loka, and the circle around it is called the Shishumara circle, and therein the local residential planet of the personality of Godhead, or Kshirodakshayi Vishnu, is situated. Before reaching there, the mystic passes over the Milky Way to reach Brahmaloka, and while going there, he first reaches Vaishvanara Loka, where the demigod controls fire. On Vaishvanara Loka, the yogi becomes completely cleansed of all dirty sins acquired while in contact with the material world. The Milky Way in the sky is indicated herein as the way leading to Brahmaloka, the highest planet of the universe. So, all knowledge is in the Bhagavatam. There's cosmological knowledge of the universe and so forth. This Sisumara is the pivot for turning of the complete universe, and is called the navel of Vishnu, Garbhodakshayi Vishnu. The yogi alone goes beyond the circle of Sisumara and attains the planet Maharloka, where purified saints like Bhrigu enjoy a duration of life of 4,300,000,000 solar years. This planet is worshipable even for the saints who are transcendentally situated. So this is the same Bhrigu who tested Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu to determine which one is actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And before that, the Personality of Godhead as Kshirodakshayi Vishnu, who's residing in the planet in the circle of Sisumara, that is actually Lord Balaji, who descends in this world. At the time of the final devastation of the complete universe, the end of the duration of Brahma's life, a flame of fire emanates from the mouth of Ananta, from the bottom of the universe. The yogi sees all the planets of the universe burning to ashes, and thus he leaves for Satyaloka by airplanes used by the great purified souls. The duration of life in Satyayoga is calculated to be Bhrigu's life is 4,300,000,000 years, but on Satyayuga, the duration of life is 15,480,000,000,000 years. So these are mystical things beyond our comprehension. Even though they're material, it's still within the purview of the material world. Imagine the spiritual world. So now there's a description of Satyaloka, where there's neither bereavement nor old age nor death. There's no pain of any kind, and therefore there are no anxieties, save that sometimes, due to consciousness, there is a feeling of compassion for those unaware of the process of devotional service, who are subjected to unsurpassable miseries in the material world. So unfortunately, materialistic people don't take advantage of the spiritual knowledge. They ignore it. And because of that, they remain unfortunate. So after reaching Satyaloka, the devotee is specifically able to be incorporated fearlessly by the subtle body in an identity similar to that of the gross body. And one after another, he gradually attains stages of existence from earthly to watery, fiery, glowing, and airy until he reaches the ethereal stage. So anyone who can reach Brahmaloka or Satyaloka by dint of spiritual perfection and practice is qualified to attain three different types of perfection. One who has attained a specific planet by dint of pious activities attains places in terms of his comparative pious activities. One who has attained a place by dint of Virat or Hiranyagarbha worship is liberated along with the liberation of Brahma. But one who attains the place by dint of devotional service is specifically mentioned here in relation to how he can penetrate into the different coverings of the universe and thus ultimately disclose his spiritual identity in the absolute atmosphere of supreme existence. So you can see it's not an easy thing to get out of the material world. So according to Srila Jiva Goswami, all the universes are clustered together up and down, and each and every one of them is separately sevenfold covered. The watery portion is beyond the sevenfold coverings, and each covering is 10 times more expansive than the previous covering. So the personality of Godhead who creates all such universes by his breathing period lies above the cluster of the universes. So he's talking about Mahavishnu. And the water of the causal ocean is differently situated than the covering water of the universe. The water that serves as covering for the universe is material, whereas the water of the causal ocean is spiritual. As such, the watery covering mentioned herein is considered to be the false egotistic covering of all living entities, and the gradual process of liberation from the material coverings, one after another, as mentioned herein, is the gradual process of being liberated from false egotistic conceptions of the material gross body, and then being absorbed in the identification of the subtle body till the attainment of the pure spiritual body in the absolute realm of the kingdom of God. So we can see how difficult it is to get free of the false ego. Srila Sridhar Swami confirms that a part of the material nature, after being initiated by the Lord, is known as the Mahat Tattva. A fractional portion of the Mahat Tattva is called the false ego. A portion of the ego is the vibration of sound, and a portion of sound is atmospheric air. A portion of the airy atmosphere is turned into forms, and the forms constitute the power of electricity or heat. Heat produces the smell of the aroma of the earth, and the gross earth is produced by such aroma. And all these combined together constitute the cosmic phenomenon. The extent of the cosmic phenomenon is calculated to be diametrically, both ways, 4 billion miles. Then the coverings of the universe begin. The first stratum of the covering is calculated to extend 80 million miles, and the subsequent coverings of the universe are respectively of fire, effulgence, air, and ether, one after another, each extending 10 times further than the previous. The fearless devotee of the Lord penetrates each one of them and ultimately reaches the absolute atmosphere where everything is of one and the same spiritual identity. Then the devotee enters one of the Vaikuntha planets where he assumes exactly the same form as the Lord and engages in the loving transcendental service of the Lord. That is the highest perfection of devotional service. Beyond this, there's nothing to be desired or achieved by the perfect yogi. So now we see the great scientist's exploration of space is child's play. They don't really understand the extent of the universe, the coverings of the universe, what's beyond the universe. They don't even know what's on the earth. So it's all a waste of time and money. The devotee thus surpasses the subtle objects of different senses like aroma by smelling, the palate by tasting, vision by seeing forms, touch by contacting, the vibrations of the ear by ethereal identification, and the sense organs by material activities. Beyond the sky there are subtle coverings resembling the elementary coverings of the universes. The gross coverings are a development of partial ingredients of the subtle coverings. So the yogi or devotee, along with liquidation of the gross elements, relinquishes the subtle causes like aroma by smelling. The pure spiritual spark, the living entity, thus becomes completely cleansed of all material contamination to become eligible for entrance into the kingdom of God. The devotee, thus surpassing the gross and subtle forms of coverings, enters the plane of egoism, and in that status he merges the material mode of nature, ignorance and passion, in this point of neutralization, and thus reaches egoism and goodness. After this, all egoism is merged in the Mahat Tattva, and he comes to the point of pure self-realization. So, hearing all these descriptions, a person would come to the conclusion, this is so complicated, I don't think I can do it, which is the right conclusion. Therefore, Krishna says, Manmanabhava madbhakto madhyajimam namaskru mam evaisyasi satyam te pratijani priyosami. He says, just always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, offer all your homage and respect to me. If you do this, I promise you that you will come back to me. Of this there's no doubt. So you don't have to do all these things that are described here. You can achieve the same result by just being a sincere devotee of the Lord and following always the instructions of the bona fide gurus. So when we, so here Krishna says, Prabhupada explains, a sincere soul is helped by the Lord through meeting a bona fide spiritual master. In other words, when you desire to know something about God, you pray to God, please help me, then he will send you to meet, or send a devotee to meet you and to help you. He answers that sincere prayer. So, a sincere soul is helped by the Lord through meeting a bona fide spiritual master, the representative of the Lord. By the instruction of such a spiritual master, one gets the seed of bhakti yoga. It's called bhakti lata bija, the seed of love of God. It's planted in the heart through the ear by hearing the words of a genuine devotee. As we're doing now, we're hearing Prabhupada's purports. Prabhupada's purports, as he said, are his spiritual ecstasies. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recommends that a devotee sow the seed of bhakti yoga in his heart and nurture it by the watering of hearing and chanting the holy name, fame, etc. of the Lord. The simple process of offenselessly chanting and hearing the holy name of the Lord will gradually promote one very soon to the stage of emancipation or liberation. There are 3 stages in chanting the holy name of the Lord. The first stage is offensive chanting of the holy name. The second is the reflective stage of chanting the holy name. The third stage is the offenseless chanting of the holy name of the Lord. In the second stage only, the stage of reflection between the offensive and offenseless stage, one automatically attains the stage of emancipation. And in the offenseless stage, one actually enters into the kingdom of God, although physically he may apparently be within the material world. To attain the offenseless stage, one must be on guard in the following manner. So, first stage, we're chanting Hare Krishna, but we're committing offenses. The second stage, we're chanting Hare Krishna, and we might still be committing some offenses, but every time we do, we think about it, and we get advice and help how to avoid it. So we're reflecting on it. The first stage, we're committing those offenses and not even thinking about it. It's like second habit. Second stage, we start to really think seriously. This is actually not right. I should stop this. The third stage is offenseless. And as he says here, one actually enters in the kingdom of God in that third stage, although physically he may apparently be within the material world. So we have examples of that. Great acharyas, pure devotees. They're here, but they're not here. They are continually with Krishna. When we speak of hearing and chanting, it means that not only should one chant and hear of the holy name of the Lord as Rama, Krishna, or systematically the 16 names Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. But one should also read and hear the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam in the association of devotees. The primary practice of Bhakti Yoga will cause the seed already sowed in the heart to sprout, and by a regular watering process, as mentioned above, the Bhakti Yoga creeper will begin to grow. By systematic nurturing, the creeper will grow to such an extent that it will penetrate the coverings of the universe, as we have heard in the previous verses, reaching the effulgent sky, the Brahmajyoti, and go farther and farther and reach the spiritual sky, where there are innumerable spiritual planets called Vaikuntha Lokas. Above all of them is Krishna Loka or Goloka Vrindavana, wherein the growing creeper enters and takes repose at the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna, the original personality of Godhead. When one reaches the lotus feet of Lord Krishna at Goloka Vrindavan, the watering process of hearing and reading, as also chanting of the holy name in the pure devotional stage, fructifies, and the fruits grown there in the form of love of God are tangibly tasted by the devotee, even though he is here in this material world. The ripe fruits of love of God are relished only by the devotees constantly engaged in the watering process as described above. But the working devotee must always be mindful so that the creeper, which has so grown, will not be cut off. Therefore, he should be mindful of the following considerations. 1. Offense by one at the feet of a pure devotee may be likened to the mad elephant who devastates a very good garden if he enters it. 2. One must be very careful to guard himself against such offenses at the feet of pure devotees, just as one protects a creeper by all-around fencing. 3. It so happens that by the watering process some weeds are also grown, and unless such weeds are uprooted, the nurturing of the main creeper, or the creeper of Bhakti Yoga, may be hampered. So here, this is not simply an allegorical explanation, this is real. One cultivates this plant of devotional service called the Bhakti Lata Bija. And now there's a detailed explanation how to cultivate it so it actually grows and penetrates the coverings of the material world and enters into the spiritual world and then offers nice fruits and flowers to the Lord. And then one can taste these fruits and flowers. Actually, these weeds are material enjoyment, merging of the self in the absolute without separate individuality, and many other desires in the field of religion, economic development, sense enjoyment, and emancipation. There are many other weeds like disobedience to the tenets of the revealed scriptures, unnecessary engagements, killing animals, and hankering after material gain, prestige, and adoration. If sufficient care is not taken, then the watering process may only help to breed the weeds, stunting the healthy growth of the main creeper and resulting in no fructification of the ultimate requirement, love of God. In other words, if we're chanting with offenses, and there are 10 offenses to the holy name, and the worst is disobeying the orders of the spiritual master, or offending the spiritual master, well, then we'll grow the weeds rather than the Bhakti Lata Bij, the plant of devotional service. The devotee must therefore be very careful to uproot the different weeds in the very beginning. Only then will the healthy growth of the main creeper not be stunted. And by so doing, the devotee is able to relish the fruit of love of God and thus live practically with Lord Krishna even in this life and be able to see the Lord in every step. See, this is what happens. Even though we're still in the material world, we're able to see the Lord at every step. We become liberated from the birth and death and so forth. The highest perfection of life is to enjoy life constantly in the association of the Lord, and one who can relish this does not aspire after any temporary enjoyment of the material world via other media. Only the purified soul can attain the perfection of associating with the personality of Godhead in complete bliss and satisfaction in his constitutional state. Whoever is able to renovate such devotional perfection is never again attracted by this material world, and he never returns. So it's possible to associate with Krishna now, here, in the material world, and we're doing that by worshiping the deity, chanting the holy names, hearing the words of the Lord, and most especially by engaging in practical service of the Lord. So the desire by mystic yogis or the desire by Mayavadis to merge into the existence of the Lord is not at all described here, because genuine devotees never accept merging into the impersonal rays of the Lord, but always aspire after personal association with the Supreme Lord in one of the Vaikuntha spiritual planets in the spiritual sky. So we should not waste our time with impersonalist philosophy. It is a waste of time. So this attainment of love of God that's being described here means that there's complete freedom from all other attractions. The conditioned soul has many aspirations, such as becoming a religious man, a rich man, or a first-class enjoyer, or becoming God himself, or becoming powerful like the mystics, and acting wonderfully by getting anything or doing anything. But all these aspirations should be rejected by the prospective devotee, who actually wants to revive his dormant love of God. The impure devotee aspires after all of the above-mentioned material things by perfection of devotion. But a pure devotee has none of the tinges of the above contaminations, which are the influence of material desires, impersonal speculations, and attainment of mystic powers. One can attain the stage of love of God by pure devotional service or by a learned labor of love, for the sake of the devotee's lovable object, the personality of Godhead. So one attains love of God by taking all the necessary efforts to serve God practically and completely in this life. And this will bring about love of Godhead, or the stage of Shantam and Anandam, as stated in this verse. In other words, peace and eternal happiness. Your Majesty, Maharaj Parikshit, know that all that I have described in reply to your proper inquiry is just according to the version of the Vedas, and it is eternal truth. This was described personally by Lord Krishna unto Brahma, with whom the Lord was satisfied upon being properly worshipped. For those who are wandering in the material universe, there is no more auspicious means of deliverance than what is aimed at the direct devotional service of Lord Krishna. So it says, Vasudevi Bhagavati Bhakti Yogo Yato Bhavet. That means that Vasudevi Bhagavati, unto Lord Vasudeva, or Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhakti Yoga Yata Bhavet, that direct service may result unto the Lord. And thus, what happens? There's nothing more auspicious than this. There's nothing greater than this in this world. So Bhakti Yoga is the only absolute and auspicious means of deliverance from the grip of material existence. There are many indirect methods for deliverance from the clutches of material existence, but none of them is as easy and auspicious as Bhakti Yoga. The great personality Brahma, with great attention and concentration of the mind, studied the Vedas 3 times, and after scrutinizingly examining them, he ascertained that attraction for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is the highest perfection of religion. Tad adya vasyat kutosto rachir atmam yato bhavet. There's nothing greater in the Vedas than developing this attraction for Lord Krishna. And Brahma is the highest Vedic authority. So the Vedas are taught to Brahmaji in the beginning of material creation. And he heard it directly from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this is recorded for the benefit of all people who are interested in Vedas. And Brahmaji studied the Vedas 3 times over, which is necessary for anyone who wants to be a real student of them. And he studied with great attention, concentrating on the purpose of the Vedas. And after scrutinizingly examining the whole process, he ascertained that becoming a pure, unalloyed devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is the topmost perfection of all religious principles. And this is the last instruction also of Bhagavad Gita, directly presented by the Personality of Godhead. So this conclusion of Brahma is accepted by all the bona fide acharyas. But those who are against this conclusion, they're called Vedavadaratas. Vedavadaratas are people who are confused by studying the Vedas, as opposed to becoming enlightened. The Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, is in every living being along with the individual soul, and this fact is perceived and hypothesized in our acts of seeing and taking help from the intelligence. So, Bhagavan Sarvabhutesu Lakshita Swatmanahari Drishyar Budhyadibir Drasta Lokshanir Anuma Pakai. This fact that Krishna is in the heart of every living entity is perceived and hypothesized in our acts of seeing and taking help from the intelligence. Well, this is very interesting. In other words, if we use our intelligence correctly, we can perceive the Personality of Godhead in the heart of every living entity. So this is a form of intelligence, or this is the process of using our intelligence to understand God. In other words, you can look at the material nature, and if your intelligence is properly trained, you can see Krishna. So generally people argue, well, since the Lord is not visible to our eyes, how can one surrender unto him or render transcendental service unto him? So to such a common man, here's a practical suggestion given by Srila Sukadeva Goswami, how one can perceive the Supreme Lord by reason and perception. Everyone's saying, oh, well, religion is all about belief, but we're modern people, we're trained in the university, we want to understand with our reason and our direct perception. Well, Sukadeva Goswami is giving a way to actually see Krishna in the material world by using your reason and perception. Actually, at the present moment, with our contaminated senses, it's not possible to see the Lord or become convinced of his presence in this world right now by a practical service attitude. But by this service attitude, the Lord will reveal himself to the devotee. And such a pure devotee of the Lord can perceive the Lord's presence always and everywhere. He can perceive the intelligence, that the intelligence is the form, direction of the Paramatma, plenary portion of the personality of Godhead. The presence of Paramatma in everyone's company is not very difficult to realize, even for the common man. And the procedure is as follows. One can perceive one's self-identification and feel positively that he exists. So the first step, number one, in using reason and perception to see God now in the material world, is to identify oneself as a person. So oftentimes I've gone through this in a public place and in high schools and universities, and I've asked, does anyone in this room think that they are not a person? Always one idiot raises his hands. I said, you don't think you're a person? He said, no. I said, okay. Will the person sitting next to him please pick up the chair and hit him over the head? So everyone goes, they laugh a little bit, you know. And I said, well, if no one else will do it, I'll do it. So I stand up and grab a chair, and everyone's like, you know, and the other person is standing here, what are you doing? I said, what do you mean, what am I doing? So, what are you doing? So I'm going to hit you on the head with a chair. Why are you going to do that? I don't want you to hit me on the head. Oh, that means you're a person. Because if you were not a person, then you wouldn't complain about being hit over the head. But because you're a person, not only you complain about it, you're going to go to the police, you're going to press charges against me, you're going to claim that I violated your rights. That means you're a person, right? Okay. So it's very easy to prove to people that they are a person. And only crazy people would claim they are not. But this is the first and most important step in perceiving God through reason and perception. So one can perceive one's self-identification and feel positively that he exists. So this is what Descartes did. Descartes, who was a French philosopher, he eliminated everything he was not sure of. So he had to eliminate God. He had to eliminate his neighbor, his dog, the king, the queen, his bank account, everything. He eliminated, but there's one thing he couldn't eliminate. And he said, I think, therefore I exist. He couldn't eliminate the fact that he was thinking. That was the one thing he couldn't eliminate. So that became the only thing he could ascertain as real in this world. Everything else he rejected. Belief in God, he didn't have any proof of it. Even this microphone exists. He wasn't sure that it exists. But the one thing he was absolutely sure existed was, I think, therefore I exist. Now, from that, he reconstructed the universe. That one thing that he was absolutely sure of, he used to reconstruct the universe, and included God in his new universe that he created in his mind. One can perceive one's self-identification and feel positively that he exists. He may not feel it very abruptly, but by using a little intelligence, he can feel that he is not the body. He can feel that the hand, the leg, the head, the hair, and the limbs are all his bodily parts and parcels, but as such the hand, the leg, the head, etc. cannot be identified with himself. Therefore, just by using intelligence, he can distinguish and separate his self from other things that he sees. Well, what's the second thing? He can understand that he's different than the body, because he is the seer and the body is the seen. So now he can see that there's this duality between the body and himself. It's step 2. So there is a difference between the seer and the seen. Okay, so step 1, what's step 1? Yeah, if I hit you over the head, would you complain? So that means you're a person. If you were not a person, I could hit you over the head and you wouldn't complain. So it doesn't matter, I'm not a person. No, but because you're a person, you complain about it. That means you're a person. And number 2, by thinking very clearly, you can understand there's a difference between you and your body. You're not this hand, because a hand could be cut off and you would still be looking at it, cut off from your body. You're not the leg, you're not the ear, you're not the nose. All these things could be cut off and you would still perceive them. You're not the head either, and you're not the heart, because you could still perceive them in your subtle body, even though they're cut off, or even though it looks like you're dead, but you would still be able to perceive these things. So there's a difference between you, the perceiver or the seer, and the objects that you see, like the microphone, like your hand, like the harmonium. There's a difference. Okay. This is 2nd Canto, 2nd chapter, verse 35. Now, by a little use of intelligence, the person can also readily agree that the living being who sees the things beyond himself by ordinary vision has no power to see or to move independently. All our ordinary actions and perceptions depend on various forms of energy supplied to us by nature in various combinations. Our sense of perception and our ability and of action, that is to say, our 5 perceptive senses, hearing, touching, sight, taste, and smell, as well as our 5 senses of action, hands, legs, speech, evacuation organs, and reproductive organs, and also our 3 subtle senses, namely the mind, intelligence, and ego, that makes 13 altogether, are supplied to us by various arrangements of gross or subtle forms of natural energy. And it is equally evident that our objects of perception are nothing but the products of the inexhaustible permutations and combinations of the forms taken by natural energy. As this conclusively proves that the ordinary living being has no independent power of perception or of motion, and as we undoubtedly feel our existence being conditioned by nature's energy, we conclude that he who sees is spirit, and that the senses as well as the objects of perception are material. The spiritual quality of the seer is manifest in our dissatisfaction with the limited. Okay, so now we have 1, I am a person, distinct person. 2, there's a difference between myself, the seer, and the objects that I see. 3, the instruments of perception, the process of perception, and the objects of perception, all of these are supplied to me. I did not create them, and I'm not maintaining them. I'm simply using them. Right? Just like I didn't create the internet, I don't maintain the internet, but I can use it. I didn't create my car, I don't control my car, but I can use it. Right? Now, the same way, I didn't create my senses, I didn't create the process of perception, and I didn't create the objects of perception, but I can perceive things, use this process, and use the objects and all these things. And I'm not maintaining the process of perception, and I'm not maintaining the objects of perception, and I'm not maintaining the instruments of perception. All these are supplied and being maintained outside of my control. The only thing I can do is mess these things up. That's the only thing I can really do. Or I could use them properly. So 1, 2, 3, right? Number 4. The spiritual quality of the seer is manifest in our dissatisfaction with the limited state of materially conditioned existence. That is the difference between spirit and matter. Well, what does this mean? Well, for example, we're watching a golf tournament, and there's Tiger Woods on the 18th hole, and he's got to get a birdie to win. You know what a birdie is? Okay, every hole has what you call a par. Normally, in normal conditions, you should get the ball in the hole with, let's say, 4 strikes, right, of your club. So, you know, you have what's called a green, and you're far away from the green, so you have to hit it 1 strike, and you have to get it close or into the green. And then a second strike, you get closer to the hole. And then third strike, you get closer. And the fourth, you put it in the hole. A birdie is when you get it in the hole in less than 4 strikes, less than the par. Okay? And like, number 1 is you're, you know, like 500 yards or 100 yards away, and you hit with 1 strike, and it goes right into the hole. That is like top of the line, right? And then 2 strikes is extremely good. 3 strikes is very, you know, is good, you know. And 4 strikes is par. It's normal. So here's Tiger Woods. To win, he's got to get a complete birdie, like 1 strike, right? I mean, let's say 3 strikes. So he hits the ball, he gets on the green. Hits it again, he gets close. Now, this is the crucial one, right? If he gets it in, he wins. If he misses, he ties, right? And if he misses a second time, he loses, right? So everyone's very tense. This is the excitement of golf. You know, you would think, what's golf so exciting about? Why people? Because this is what happens. So everyone's tense. And by the way, everyone has to be quiet. No one's allowed to make noise. This is not like football or baseball. Everyone's screaming at the top of their lungs. You know, the golf is different. So, and the people that are describing what's happening, they also speak in whispers. And now Tiger is on the green. He has to get a birdie in order to win. Everything is tense. You know, they speak like that, right? I don't know if you ever watched a golf game or not. It's very boring to me, but a few times I watched something, you know. So then Tiger's up there. Everyone's in expectation. And he goes, he hits it, and the ball goes like this. And, you know, here's the hole, and the ball goes like this. And he goes just around the edge and goes off. Now, what does everyone do? Everyone goes, oh! You know, Tiger Woods goes, ah! Like this. He, you know, he physically moves, or he might throw down his golf club. What does the ball do? Does the ball get emotional? No. The ball's not at all emotional. Everyone else got emotional. The whole audience, the television viewers, the announcer, and Tiger Woods himself all got emotional and had physical reactions to the emotion. Like they jerked their arm, or they went, oh no, like this, right? What did the ball do? Absolutely nothing. It's why? Because the ball is just made of matter, whereas Tiger Woods and everybody else is made of matter and spirit. If we're just matter, then no one would have these feelings. You see, that's when you can, this is called perception and reason. You can understand there's a major difference between dead matter and a living being. Now, there are some less intelligent arguments that matter develops the power of seeing and moving as a certain organic development. But such an argument cannot be accepted because there's no experimental evidence that matter has anywhere produced a living entity. Okay, we produced the golf ball. It's a highly specific object, right? It's made specifically for being hit with a golf club. And there's a lot of technology in it, right? But the golf ball is not a person. It's not manifesting the power to see or the power to move. It doesn't move unless something makes it move. It doesn't perceive anything. It didn't perceive any hurt by missing the hole. Whereas Tiger Woods, he hit the ball, it missed the hole, it affected him. He expressed it emotionally and physically. See? So trust no future, however pleasant. Don't trust this Darwinism. You know, Darwin himself made a major statement. He said, at some point, it may be, at some point, the soul does develop out of material combination. Exactly what point it is, I don't know yet. Now, why did he say that? Why is he talking about the soul? Because everyone else is talking about a soul. So he's trying to give a mechanical explanation of it. He's saying at some point in material evolution, the soul evolves. You see? Like Descartes, he reconstructed the universe based on the one thing he was sure of. I think, therefore I know. So based on that, he even reconstructed God into the universe that he had rejected before when he was not sure of God's existence. So all you have to do is be sure of one thing. Just like insurance companies are sure of one thing. What is that? Everybody's going to die. And because they're sure of that one thing, they make billions of dollars. They're some of the richest companies in the world. They're acting on the premise of this one certitude. Everyone's going to die, so let's sell people life insurance. Everyone's going to sick, so let's sell them sickness insurance. Everyone's going to have an accident. Let's sell them accident insurance. You see, they're going on a premise. Well, they're not sure about the fire. They're not sure about the accident. You know, there are good probabilities that it will happen, but it's not sure. Some people go through life without accidents and their house burning down. But they're sure of absolutely one thing. Everyone's going to die. Everyone's going to get old. Everyone's going to get sick. So they sell that type of insurance. And because of that, they become the richest companies, some of the richest companies in the world. So here, we're absolutely sure of one thing. I exist as an individual. From that point, we can go to understanding that God also exists, using simply reason and perception. You don't have to rely on Shastra. None of these points rely on Shastra. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, right? And then 4. I'm feeling dissatisfaction. Matter doesn't feel dissatisfaction. Does the microphone revolt? Is it, today I'm not going to let you project your voice through me? Does it say that? No, it doesn't say anything. It's just there, right? Because there's no movement and there's no perception manifested in the microphone. Idle talks regarding future development of matter into spirit are actually foolish because no matter has ever developed the power of seeing or moving in any part of the world. They're just like scientists saying, well, you know, we're close to creating the first artificial cell. We've got all the genomes
mapped out. And now we're going to create one living cell from simply chemicals. It's never been done and never will be done, as much as they say they're going to do it. Right? Therefore, it is definite that matter and spirit are two different identities. So what are the scientists trying to do? They're trying to make a living being from dead chemicals. They're not, or dead matter. They're not able to do it. The matter is there, but they don't know how to transform it into a living being. So they're trying, they make robots that talk. Oh, how are you? My name is, what are you doing today? Hi. Oh. What kind of robot is that? I mean, that's not a living being. Right? Then they make intelligent computers. The computer talks to you. You have hit the wrong button. Do you want us to correct your mistake? It's all nonsense. Right? Now we come to the point that the things which are seen by a little use of intelligence cannot be animate unless we accept someone as the user or director of the intelligence. Intelligence gives one direction like some higher authority, and the living being cannot see or move or eat or do anything without the use of intelligence. When one fails to take advantage of intelligence, he becomes a deranged man, and so a living being is dependent on intelligence or the direction of a superior being. Such intelligence is all-pervading. Every living being has his intelligence, and this intelligence being the direction of some higher authority is just like a father giving direction to his son. The higher authority who is present and residing within every individual living being is the superself. Okay, now, we have 4 points, right? I exist as a person, an individual. There's a difference between me as the seer and the objects of perception. The process of seeing, the instruments of seeing, and the objects of perception are all supplied to me. I didn't make them. 4. There's a major difference between me as the seer and the objects of perception, because I feel dissatisfaction, whereas the objects never feel dissatisfaction. Therefore, I have something different in me than these material objects. And that is, I have something that's not material. It's not made of material combination, like the material objects I'm perceiving. What is that thing? It's called a soul. It's an anti-material thing. Otherwise, if I was just a material object, then why am I feeling dissatisfaction? Why am I behaving different than the object? Object gets hit on the head, it doesn't do anything. It doesn't complain. You even touch me with a pin, I'll complain. So there's a difference between me and the material object. Therefore, I'm not a material object. I might have matter, but there's something else plus here. Now, this 5th one is pivotal. This is the most important one, or let's say the most crucial one. The most important one was number 1, accepting that I'm an individual. And this number 5 is very pivotal. It says that anything I do, I see that I use my intelligence. The intelligence is the form, direction in my body. Nothing can be animate unless we accept someone as the user or the director of the intelligence. Let's say my intelligence is completely destroyed, right? Like, let's say I take a drug and I become unconscious. When I'm unconscious, do I move around? No, I mean, my body can still function. Let's say I'm in a coma. My body is still functioning on a very low level. But you don't see me moving around, talking, laughing, fainting, crying. No, I'm just sitting there because my intelligence is not working. The body is working automatically, but it needs help. When I'm unconscious, someone's got to feed me, someone's got to clean me, someone's got to do all these things. I can't do them on my own. I'm unconscious. My intelligence is not really working. So in order to work, in order to move, in order to act, there has to be some form direction given by the intelligence. So when one, in other words, intelligence gives one direction, like some higher authority. And if living being cannot see or move or eat or do anything without the use of intelligence, when one fails to take advantage of intelligence, he becomes a deranged man. And so a living being is dependent on intelligence or the direction of a superior being. Now, let's say you're not very intelligent. Let's say we're not very intelligent. So we go to a guru. And he gives us form and direction with his intelligence to help our intelligence make the right decisions, right? But there's got to be intelligence. There's got to be something giving form and direction and making us move and act and perceive, okay? Every living being has his intelligence, and this intelligence being the direction of some higher authority is just like a father giving direction to his son. The higher authority who is present and residing within every individual living being is the super self. So the first step is to understand nothing moves unless there is a form direction given by intelligence. And that's number 5. Now number 6, just like I'm moving something, like let's say I go and buy a train set, and I come home, I put the tracks together, and there's a little bridge, and there's a moat, and then there's a little town, and there's a little forest, you know, and then I have electric wires, and I connect it to a remote control system, and then I plug the whole thing into the wall, and now I have juice, right? So then I go bzzz, and the train starts going choo 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 choo, and then I go bzzz, and it stops. Then I go bzzz, then it keeps going choo 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 choo. Then I go zzz, and it stops. So now, according to my will, my intelligence, the train is moving and stopping. Now, I didn't make the train. I bought it. Somebody else made it. But I put it together according to their instructions. And I connected it. I put it into the electric plug. And now I'm making it move according to my will. Now I look into the universe. I look around me and I see there are many things moving that I'm not directing. The earth is moving on its axis in a very precise way. Now, right now, the earth tilted on its axis so that the northern hemisphere is a little bit farther from the sun than the southern hemisphere, and the southern hemisphere is a little bit closer to the sun. So now it's summer in the southern hemisphere in South America, and it's winter. Look at it. You know, it's gray, it's cold, it's raining, it might snow here. And then after Makara Sankranti, which is coming up around the 13th of January, the earth starts tilting again, very subtly. And then when we get to June, it's closest to the sun than South America. So the northern hemisphere is close. So now it's summertime. Now we look outside the same windows, and it's sunny, there's blue skies, it's warm. See? I mean, if you remember, 6 months ago we were looking out the same window. It was sunny, it was blue, it was good weather, right? Now we're looking out, it's the end of December, it's gray, it's foggy, it's cold. Why is this happening? Because the earth tilted. So who's doing that tilting? And it's a very precise tilting. Who's doing it? Well, I'm running the train set. Zzz, stop. Zzz, go. Zzz. You see, train is going according to my will. So by comparison, I can understand there's someone more intelligent than me that's doing all this complicated movements. It's moving under his intelligence, not my intelligence. And Even my own body is moving under his intelligence. I'm not controlling the heartbeat. I'm not controlling enzymatic processes of digestion. I'm not controlling metabolic processes of assimilation of the food in form of glucose, simple sugars and things like that. I don't know how to break down complex sugars into simple sugars. I don't know how to assimilate it to provide energy. I'm not controlling the heartbeat. I'm not controlling the blood circulation. I'm not controlling anything. But it's my body. So I'm controlling certain things. Like if I want to not follow Krishna consciousness, I decide not to do it. If I want to follow Krishna consciousness, I decide to do it. But my body, the process of perception, the objects of perception, the instruments of perception, the movements of the earth, the digestive process, I'm not controlling any of it. But it's happening precisely. So, point 6 is, now I can understand there's a superior intelligence to me that's making things move and is also making possible perception. I've come to 6 points without using scriptural knowledge, without saying Bhagavad Gita says this. Now I can understand the existence of God and see the existence of God in the material world right now without any dogma, religion, or philosophy, simply by using my reason and observation. Now there's a point 7. Who is that superior intelligence? That we need help. That we have to get help from Shastra. But to understand that there's a supreme God or supreme intelligence, I didn't have to use any evidence from Scripture. I just had to use my reason and my perception. So no one can say, oh, I don't see God, so how can I believe in God? No. Here's a way. 2nd chapter, verse 30, 2nd canto, chapter 2, verse 35, that explains a practical way how one can perceive the Supreme Lord by reason and perception, without any faith, without any scriptural evidence, without anybody telling us anything. This is very interesting. You see how great the Bhagavatam is. At this point in our investigation, now we've got 6 points. Yes?
What is the 6th point?
The 6th point is, by comparison, I know that my intelligence is giving form and direction to things, like the train, right? Zzz, it's going forward. Zzz, it stops. I'm controlling that. It's moving according to my will. But now I look around and I see the earth is moving in a very subtle, precise way on its axis. And at the same time, it's revolving around the sun. And the same way the sun and the whole universe is revolving around the natural, around the polar axis of the universe. And all these 3 movements are in sync. They're perfectly synchronized. And they're way beyond any power that I have to control. And we understood in point 5, nothing moves without intelligence behind it, right? The electricity, you flip the switch, it doesn't go on by itself. There's a whole organization behind the electric light bulb. You know, the wires, you can't see them now, but if you take off these ceiling tiles, you'll see the wires going to the general junction box downstairs. And then if you look at that carefully, you'll see there are wires going from that junction box underground to a junction box in the neighborhood. And if you look at those wires, you'll see those wires are going from that junction box in the neighborhood to a central distribution center, which is maybe in Redmond or maybe somewhere in Issaquah, right? Or Sammamish. And then from there, it's getting its juice from other wires going to the Puget Energy plant. And in the plant, there's plenty of engineers and workers. And there's a CEO of that company, right? And then there's generators and dynamos and different things, and they're using the energy from oil or coal or wind or water to turn the turbines that generates the electricity that goes through the wires, so that when I go like this, tick, the lights come on. See? Now, where did the oil come from? Where did the coal come from? Where does the wind come from? Where does the water come from? Ultimately, it's coming from the sun. The plants used photosynthesis to capture the energy of the sun and concentrate it in the plant. Then the plant died, and it was compacted for hundreds and thousands and millions of years, and it turned into either oil or coal. The energy in the coal or the oil is coming originally from the sun through photosynthesis. Who set all this thing up? Who's maintaining it? Who's controlling it? I'm not doing it. But I know from analyzing myself with reason and perception that nothing happens without intelligence. So the crucial point is at number 5. And then from comparison, we can see there's a superior intelligence to me in the universe. That means I can understand the existence of God now. Without Shastra, without faith, simply with perception and reason. Okay. Now, at this point in our investigation, we may consider the following question. On the one hand, we realize that all our perceptions and activities are conditioned by arrangements of material nature. Yet we also ordinarily feel and say, I am perceiving and I am doing. Therefore, we can say that our material senses of perception and action are moving because we are identifying the self with the material body, and that the superior principle of superself is guiding and supplying us according to our desire. By taking advantage of the guidance of superself in the form of intelligence, we can either continue to study and to put into practice our conclusion that I am not this body, or we can choose to remain in the false material identification, fancying ourselves to be the possessors and doers. Our freedom consists in orienting our desire either toward the ignorant material misconception or the true spiritual conception. We can easily attain to the true spiritual conception by recognizing the superself or Paramatma to be our friend and guide, and by dovetailing our intelligence with the superior intelligence of Paramatma. The superself and the individual self are both spirit, and therefore the superself and the individual self are both qualitatively one and distinct from matter. But the superself and the individual self cannot be on an equal level because the superself gives direction or supplies intelligence, and the individual self follows the direction, and thus actions are performed properly. The individual is completely dependent on the direction of the superself because in every step, the individual self follows the direction of the superself in the matter of seeing, hearing, thinking, feeling, willing, etc. So far as common sense is concerned, we come to the conclusion that there are 3 identities, namely matter, spirit, and super spirit. Now, if we go to the Bhagavad Gita, or the Vedic intelligence, we can further understand that all 3 identities, namely matter, individual spirit, and super spirit, are all dependent on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is step 7, where you need scriptural evidence to help. Up to point 6, which was explained here, we didn't need scripture. We didn't need spiritual authority. Of course, we need spiritual authority to understand how to reason properly and see properly, but it was all an intellectual exercise. But from now to understand that matter, our individual soul, and the Supreme Spirit or Paramatma, all 3 are controlled and coming from Krishna. That we need some help. The Bhagavat, the Superself, is a partial representation or plenary portion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So even Paramatma is only a plenary portion of Paramatma. Plenary means Paramatma who's situated in the heart of every living entity, has the same potency as Krishna, but not all the same sweetness as Krishna, who is the origin. Potency is the same. He doesn't exhibit all the opulences of Krishna. He doesn't have them. Only Krishna has some special 4 opulences that even Paramatma doesn't have. But the potency is the same. It's all powerful. You cannot challenge Paramatma in any way. The Bhagavad Gita affirms that the Supreme Personality of Godhead dominates all over the material world by his partial representation only. God is great, and he can be simply an order supplier of the individual selves. Therefore, the Super Self cannot be a full representation of the Supreme Self, Purushottama, the Absolute Personality of Godhead. Realization of the Super Self by the individual self is the beginning of self-realization. And by the process of such self-realization, one is able to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead by intelligence. By the help of authorized scriptures, and principally by the grace of the Lord, the Bhagavad Gita is the preliminary conception of the Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, and Srimad Bhagavatam, which we are reading right now, is the further explanation of the science of Godhead. So if we stick to our determination and pray for the mercy of the director of intelligence sitting within the same bodily tree, like a bird sitting with another bird, as explained in the Upanishads, certainly the purport of the revealed information in the Vedas becomes clear to our vision, and there is no difficulty in realizing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, or Krishna. The intelligent man, therefore, after many births of such use of intelligence, surrenders himself at the lotus feet of Vasudeva, as confirmed by the Bhagavad Gita 7:19. So, Krishna says at the end of the 10th chapter, something very important that was just mentioned here, and that is that simply with a little fragment of my power and energy, I pervade this entire world. Atava bhayanaitena kim gyatena tavarjuna vistabhyaham idam krishnam ekam senastito jagat. But what need is there, Arjuna, for all this detailed knowledge? With a single fragment of myself, I pervade and support this entire universe. You see? And the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, the Supreme Lord is represented throughout the entire material universes by his entering into all things as the Supersoul. The Lord here tells Arjuna that there is no point in understanding how things exist in their separate opulence and grandeur. No, that's the material way of saying things. That's the scientist way. They see everything separate. You know, they don't see God as behind everything. He should know that all things are existing due to Krishna's entering them as Supersoul. From Brahma, the most gigantic entity, on down to the smallest ant, all are existing because the Lord has entered each and all and is sustaining them. There is a mission that regularly propounds that worship of any demigod will lead one to the Supreme Personality of Godhead or the supreme goal. But worship of demigods is thoroughly discouraged herein because even the greatest demigods like Brahma and Shiva represent only a part of the opulence of the Supreme Lord. He is the origin of everyone born, and no one is greater than him. He is asamodra, which means that no one is superior to him and that no one is equal to him. In the Padma Purana is said that one who considers the Supreme Lord Krishna in the same category with demigods or devatas, be they even Brahma or Shiva, becomes at once an atheist. If, however, one thoroughly studies the different descriptions of the opulences and expansions of Krishna's energy, then one can understand without any doubt the position of Lord Sri Krishna and can fix his mind in the worship of Krishna without deviation. The Lord is all-pervading by the expansion of his partial representation, the Supersoul, who enters into everything that is. Pure devotees, therefore, concentrate their minds in Krishna consciousness and full devotional service. Therefore, they are always situated in the transcendental position. Devotional service and worship of Krishna are very clearly indicated in this chapter. This is chapter 10, in verses 8 through 11. That is the way of pure devotional service. How one can attain the highest devotional perfection of association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead has been thoroughly explained in this chapter. Srila Baladev Vidyabhusana, a great acharya in disciplic succession from Krishna, concludes his commentary on this chapter by saying, from Lord Krishna's potent energy, even the powerful sun gets its power, and by Krishna's partial expansion, the whole world is maintained. Therefore, Lord Sri Krishna is worshipable. Okay, so here, very wonderful explanation. And so let's go over this one more time. Simply using reason and perception, not relying on faith, not relying on scriptural evidence, one can understand the existence of God. Point 1. It's 6 points we're going to go over, and then 7th point.
Identify ourselves as a person.
Right. Are you a person?
Yeah.
How do you know?
Because if you bang me on the head, I'm going to complain.
Exactly right. Smart boy, right? If you bang me on the head, I'm going to complain. That means it's a person, right? If I bang the microphone on the head, will it complain? No, because it's not a person. It's just dead matter. But if I bang you on the head, you're going to complain. You're going to cry. You're going to go, Daddy, Daddy, Harivilas just hit me. Right? Okay, now what's point 2?
There is a difference between seer and seen.
Okay, how do you explain that? Are you your hand? No, because your hand could be cut off, you would still be around. You'd be minus one hand. That's all. I hope that never happens, of course. But so there's a difference between the seer and the seen. Yeah, we already did that. Yeah, there's this difference between the seer and the seen, right? I'm seeing things, so I'm seeing this carpet. Am I the carpet? No. Is the carpet me? No. But I'm perceiving it. So there must be a difference between me and the carpet. Is there a difference between me and the camera? Yes, I see the camera. But I'm not the camera. The camera is not me. But I can perceive it. Same with my body. I'm seeing my body, but I'm not this body. The body is not me, but I can perceive it. Okay, point 3.
Instrument, process, and objects of perception are supplied to me.
Yeah, I'm seeing, but the process of seeing, the instruments of seeing, and the objects of perception, they're all supplied to me. I didn't manufacture them. I'm using them, but they've been supplied to me, and they're being maintained for me. I'm not even maintained. The only thing I can do is either use them correctly or misuse them. That's all. Just like you can either use your cell phone correctly or misuse it. You can use your car correctly or misuse it. You can use your house correctly or misuse it. But you didn't build the house, you didn't build the car, you didn't build the cell phone, right? Okay. Point 4.
Satisfaction.
Now, there's a difference between me and the cell phone. If I bang the cell phone with a hammer, it doesn't complain. It doesn't feel any dissatisfaction. Oh, you hurt me. You're bad. No, it doesn't say anything. I can bang it as much as I want. It won't say anything. But if you even stick a pin into my finger, I'm going to complain. I'm going to feel dissatisfied. I'm going to press charges, whatever. So there is the difference between matter and spirit is that living entities feel dissatisfaction. Matter doesn't feel any dissatisfaction. Now, when I die and my soul leaves this body, you can stick a pin into the body. You can bang it on the head with a hammer. There's no complaint. Okay. So what's number 5?
Anything I do, I use my intelligence.
Yeah. If there's no intelligence, nothing moves. Nothing moves. This is very important. We have to think about it. Like, for example, let's say you want to build a new house. So you go to Home Depot and you buy all the ingredients. buy the cement, you buy the cinder blocks, you buy the wood, you buy the electric plugs, you buy the wires, you buy everything. And you have it delivered to the property that you bought. And then you rely on Darwinism to build the house. Huh?
Big Bang.
The Big Bang Theory, Darwinism, to build the house. Because you believe in the Big Bang and Darwinism. And you wait. Does the house build itself? No. But what does happen is, when people realize that you're a stupid idiot, they come and steal all the materials. Or the birds come and pass stool on it. Or the rain comes and wets it. And eventually it's all deteriorated or stolen.
Better than that. Put together and put a detonator.
Or you can blow it up, it's still, you'll just destroy it all. Nothing. So neither the Big Bang nor Darwinism will build the house. Okay. So there has to be, I mean, the intelligent person bought the materials. Intelligent people built or constructed all those raw materials, right? And then the intelligent company is selling them, right? And then you buy it, and then an intelligent company comes and transports it all. And you dealt with an intelligent real estate agent to help you buy the property and register it, all these things. But to actually build it, you relied on Darwinism and Big Bang. And what happened? Nothing. Other than destruction and deterioration. So, what's our conclusion? Point 5. Yeah, nothing moves without intelligence. Okay? So therefore, number 6. You have number 6?
My intelligence is giving form and direction to matter.
Yes. And we gave the example of the train set. You go and buy the train set, you set it up, and you set up the remote control, you put electricity into it. And now you make the train go according to your intelligence and your will. It goes forward, goes backward, goes over the bridge, comes back behind, backs up on the bridge, goes through the forest, comes back. You make it move the way you want. So your intelligence, your will is making that thing move. And now you just look at the universe and you say, oh my God, so many other things are moving in precise ways, much more precise than my train set. Therefore, there has to be a superior intelligence, a superior will. So as soon as you understand that there's a superior intelligence or superior will animating things in the universe, that's the concept of God. Someone greater than me. You already understood that you are not made of matter, because matter doesn't manifest any dissatisfaction. You do. So you're a soul, or something different than matter. And now you see that there's a greater soul in the universe with greater intelligence than you. So now you've come to the understanding through 6 processes that God exists without simply using reason and perception. Right? Now number 7, we'll go over that one again, because now you can see 3 things. You've understood 3 things by using reason and perception. There's matter, there's an individual spirit, and there's a super spirit. You understood these things without Shastra, without faith, without anything. Just simply perception and reason. But now to understand more, we need help from Shastra. So far as common sense is concerned, we just simply used our common sense. We simply observed ourselves and nature in an honest way, without any nonsense, false philosophy. Right? We come to the conclusion that there are 3 identities, namely matter, spirit, and super spirit. Now, if we go to the Bhagavad Gita, or the Vedic intelligence, that's why Bhakti Yoga is also called Buddhi Yoga. It's synonymous. Buddha Yoga means following the superior intelligence of Krishna. Just like now we're learning, right? So all of us are following the superior intelligence of Prabhupada, who is simply making a compendium of the superior intelligence of the previous acharyas, who are simply repeating what the supreme intelligence has said, Krishna. You see? So, now if we go to the Bhagavad Gita or the Vedic intelligence, we can further understand that all three identities, namely matter, individual spirit, and the super spirit, are all dependent on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We couldn't figure that out on our own using common sense. That we need help. Okay. The super self, meaning Paramatma, is a partial representation or plenary portion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That we need help. We can't figure that out on our own. The Bhagavad Gita affirms that the Supreme Personality of Godhead dominates all over the material world by his partial representation only. See, now we know why there's demigod worship. People worship demigods because they don't accept the Vedic authority. Not that they accept the Vedic authority. They don't accept the Vedic authority. Or they accept a part of it, like accepting half the chicken. They're not accepting the whole chicken. They accept half the chicken. Therefore, they worship demigods. But why? Either they've been misled by charlatan teachers, or they're overwhelmed with material desires, and they don't want to waste their time surrendering to Krishna. They just want to get Krishna's assets. Just like you might have two friends. One actually loves you and will sacrifice for you. The other one only wants to get your assets. Just like we had a relative of ours who was, was a hard-working man. He wasn't real rich, but he had built up a little bit of wealth. And he was a tailor, right? His whole life he was a tailor and had a dry cleaning business. And it was our Uncle George. So my mother would always take us to see him and his wife, and they were somewhat close relatives and friends. And Uncle George had a friend who was a doctor, and he and his friend would always play backgammon. Backgammon, if you know that game. You throw the dice, and there's some checker-like things, and you have to move them around. It's not checkers, but it's more interesting than checkers, actually. So anyway, Uncle George would play with him. And, you spend time with someone, they come to your house, you go to their house. So, he considered him a friend and a confidant. And over a long period of time, you reveal things to people like that you normally wouldn't reveal to anybody, even your own relatives. Now, we were very close relatives of Uncle George, right? So, and we knew he had money, but, we never asked him. We were not interested in his money or anything. We were just relatives. So, one day, Uncle George was diagnosed with cancer by his friend, the doctor. And, of course, the doctor recommended radiation therapy. This is in the 1960s, right? In 1940s, 1950s, 1960s, radiation therapy meant you were definitely going to die quicker than the cancer will kill you. It happened to my father. I saw what happened. He walked to the hospital. We had to carry him back from the hospital. He was burned. And there was no way he could ever get better after being burned like that. Right? Then, to make sure he dies, after the radiation therapy, they followed up with chemotherapy, just to make sure you're going to die quicker and a horrible death. So it's still happening today, but today they've refined it a little bit so they don't burn you so bad. But it's more or less the same thing. So anyway, Uncle George goes through some radiation, Now he's bedridden. He can't get out of the bed. They have to put a pan underneath him so he passes stool and urine, right? And his wife also was, she had this terrible let's say, type of deterioration of the bones. So she was always bent over. She could never stand up. She would always be walking on two hands and two legs, you know. So she had to try and help him. The whole situation was hopeless, right? Completely hopeless. So one day he calls my brother up. He said, "Danny, come here right away." Danny said, "Uncle George, what's the matter?" He says, "That," I can't say what he called that guy, right, the doctor. He says, "is a thief. He's killing me. He's murdering me. Come here, you have to help me." So my brother goes over there, rushes over, and says, "Uncle George, what's the matter?" He said, "Dad," I can't repeat the name he used, "has stolen all my money." He said, "How could he steal your money?" I went, "Well, you know I don't trust the banks. I was keeping it under my bed." He said, "But how did he know?" So, I thought he was my friend. I told him. So while I was in the hospital being burned by him, he came over to my house and took all my money. So we're talking about maybe $150,000 in cash. You know. And my brother said, "Uncle George, why didn't you tell us? We would have, you could have trusted us. We would have." "It doesn't matter now. It doesn't matter." He said, "I got to kill that guy. I want you to kill him." My brother said, "How can I kill him? I go to jail." He said, No, you have to. You know, he said, "No, all you had to do was tell us, and we would have held the money for you. We would have put it in a safe deposit box, and we would have given it back to you. We're not interested in your money." You see how foolish people are? They don't even trust their own family members, right? They trust a complete stranger. And then the stranger, he probably didn't even have cancer. He just said, "You have cancer." It took him to the hospital and burned him. While he was completely incapacitated in the hospital, he came, took all the money. And he can't declare it as a theft because it's illegal money, right? Well, he could declare it if he wanted to, but then he would have other problems. This is due to not being Krishna conscious, wasting your whole life in mundane stuff. We got to be really careful. We don't have much time. We should spend all our time studying Bhagavatam and engaging in practical service, developing our spiritual life. And you know, we work honestly, we earn a living and everything, but understand this is the real thing, not that other stuff. All that other stuff, when it's ended, there's nothing to show for it. It'll all be destroyed. This is the only thing that's real. And this is teaching us how to see the reality in the illusion of the material world. Okay, so if we stick to our determination and pray for the mercy of the director of intelligence sitting within the same bodily tree, meaning in our own body, like a bird sitting with another bird, and that's a verse, Dwa Suparna, that says that soul and supersoul are sitting together in our heart as if two birds on the branch of a tree. And the supersoul is observing us tasting the fruits of the tree, but waiting patiently to see if ever we want to offer the fruit first to them. And then he'll offer it back as this prasadam. But now, no, we're selfishly eating the fruits and ignoring our friend, supersoul. That's the real situation we're in. But when we become conscious, then we're going to offer everything to the Lord and be satisfied with whatever the Lord offers back. Certainly the purport of the revealed information in the Vedas becomes clear to our vision when we begin to serve the Paramatma and offer everything first to the Lord and be satisfied with His mercy. Then the information that we're reading becomes clear. Like, have you ever read this before? Have you ever read this? Never read it before? Well, okay. How long have you had the Srimad Bhagavatam? 6, 7 years. And this is only in the second canto. It's like in the 10th canto. Or, huh? Okay. So you understand? There's so much in the Bhagavatam, so much. We can't waste 1 second. Otherwise, it's going to go way over our head. Even if you read it, if you read this, would you have understood it? It's very deep. I've been looking at this for 40 years. It didn't start to make sense until 36 years of looking at it. Okay? So even if you read it, there's no guarantee you're going to understand it, right? Okay.
I don't go to second school to take that because it's too difficult.
Yeah, this is wonderful. This is wonderful. That's why we have Bhagavatam. You know, we discuss it together. It's much more understandable when you discuss it together. Much more understandable. If you read it on your own, it's right over the head. Yeah. Okay, maybe we'll stop right here. And this is all nectar, unless we want to go on. You know, we can go on because there's plenty more to this chapter. Yeah, so we'll stop right here, and we'll carry on later on today. When is the next time? 2 o'clock. Okay, Haribol. Thank you very, very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, who is our Savior. Without him, we would know nothing, absolutely nothing. By his mercy, he took all the time to write this, to compile it, to make it perfect, to print it, to have it distributed. We're very fortunate. And we have the Bhagavatam here. We're having our Walmart special from the month of December. This Bhagavatam is worth $3 to $5 trillion. Actually, it's worth more than 16 trillion, more than the deficit of the United States. Right? But today, and for the last day, is tomorrow, it's on Walmart special, $200, which is like, huh? Yes, it's a ridiculous price. So we're offering it, and we only how many sets do we have? We only.
We have a few coming up.
7 sets and more in the market.
Yeah, how many have we? How many have been reserved so far?
1.
All 7 already.
But Tarika Prabhu can pick up his pieces later, or his sets later.
Okay.
And likewise, we can arrange as necessary.
Very good. Well, thank you very much.
We have 3 sets at home. Anybody wants
Oh, you have 3 extra sets in. Okay, so
Counting those,
they're already gone.
assigned here.
Wow, unbelievable. 18 volumes of pure Amrit. Pure Amrit. So, thank you very much. All glories to Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.